I have a dream that my four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. After listening to this quote, I bet most of us know who we're going to be talking about today. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15th of 1929 in Atlanta. He was an American pastor and activist who fought for the civil rights of African Americans. His parents were Martin Luther King Sr. and Alberta William King. He studied in public schools and graduated high school when he was 15 years old in 1945. He graduated in sociology from Atlanta's Morehouse College in 1951, graduated in theology from Crozer Theological Seminary in Chester, Pennsylvania. Finally, in 1955, he obtained his doctorate in physiology while living in Boston. He met Coretta Scott, with whom he married in 1953. Together, they had four children: Yolanda King, Martin Luther King III, Dexter Scott King, and Bernice King. Just like his father and grandfather, he became a Baptist pastor in 1954. He was in charge of a church in the city of Montgomery, Alabama. At the same time, he joined the executive committee of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Just 1 year later, several racist incidents led him to dedicate an entire social movement. One of the most well-known incidents was the case of Rosa Parks, who refused to give up her receipt to a white person on a bus. This ended up in jail, and as a response to this, Martin Luther King led a boycott against the public buses in Montgomery. That protests continued for more than a year until the Supreme Court of the United States declared unconstitutional the law which demand a racial segregation in Montgomery's public transportation. But even with that victory, the violence was extreme, and the very house of Martin Luther King was attacked. But the fight didn't end there, of course, and Martin kept demonstrating that he was determined to achieve real equality in sociality. He went to different countries and became more and more known. In 1953, he was chosen as the president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, a Christian and a passive organization with the mission of actively participating in the movement for civil rights. After participating in several protests and boycotts in Birmingham, Alabama, he was incarcerated in 1963. From prison, he wrote a letter explaining the motives of the protests and received support from the President of the United States at the time. It was John F. Kennedy. Martin was liberated 1 week later, and the protests in Birmingham ended in June of 1963, when public spaces were open to African Americans on August 28th of the same year. He delivered his speech, which made history. I have a dream. That very day, he also spearheaded a massive march in Washington where more than 250,000 people participated. They demanded freedom and employment and a just society with no discrimination of any kind. Once the march was finished, they were received by the President Kennedy, who committed to accelerate the implementation of his new policies against segregation in schools and against unemployment, which specifically affected the Black community in 1964. Martin Luther King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Unfortunately, the good intentions of the president, who was killed months later. Martin Luther King was such a great communicator because he allowed himself to have an almost symbolic connection to his audience. They drew their energy from each other, and he was very tuned into the level of the energy in the room. That connection made the event more than a speech. It made an experience that moved people to act. What I learned from researching this project, he was a great communicator because he had energy, which made others think about what he said. He was able to keep simple words that people could understand. He didn't give up, and he ultimately reached his goal when the government passed bills to make it illegal. And he had a vision, and he stuck with that vision. He never strayed away from it.